In 2011, researchers at Northwestern University published a pretty unsettling study. The human brain starts processing a decision up to 7 seconds before you consciously realize you're even making one. 7 seconds. Your brain has already chosen before you choose. So let me ask you something. What do you think it's already decided about your life, without telling you yet? Hey, I'm George. I've been working with scripts and educational content for years, and this channel came out of a personal obsession of mine, trying to figure out why some people go through radical transformations while others stay stuck in the exact same place for decades. Even with the same conditions, the same opportunities, sometimes even more resources. What sets those people apart isn't luck, it's awareness. And that's exactly what this video is about. Stick around till the end. This is one of the pieces of content I've put the most work into writing. Signal 1. Your body knows before you do. There's a concept in neuroscience called interoception. The body's ability to sense its own internal states. Pressure, temperature, heart rate, muscle tension. Sounds technical, but in practice it's pretty simple. It's that feeling that something's off, even when everything on the surface looks fine. A study published in 2018 in Nature Human Behavior showed that people with higher interoceptive awareness, meaning people who pay closer attention to what their body is feeling, make decisions that are more aligned with their long-term values. They make fewer mistakes, not because they're smarter, but because they're listening to a source of information that most people completely ignore. Think about a scenario you've probably lived through. You're at a job that pays well. Your coworkers are decent. There's no objective problem you could actually write down on paper. But every Sunday night, that tightness in your chest shows up. How long have you been brushing that off? 6 months? A year? 3? That's interoception. Your body collecting data that your conscious mind hasn't organized into words yet. The problem is, we've been trained to ignore those signals. From the time we were kids, the message was, if it doesn't have a logical explanation, it's not real. If you can't put it in a spreadsheet, throw it out. And so we spend years dragging out situations that our bodies flagged as wrong way before our minds caught up. Here's what the science suggests. Before making any big decision, sit quietly for 5 minutes, no screens, and pay attention to what your body does. Where's the tension? What shifts when you think about one option versus the other? This isn't mysticism. It's data collection from a source you've probably been neglecting. When that feeling of misalignment keeps showing up, it's not a sign that you're broken or anxious. It's a sign that something inside you is asking for attention before it has to start screaming. Signal 2. Coincidences that don't feel like coincidences. Carl Jung coined the term synchronicity in 1952. He was trying to describe something he kept observing in his patients. Events with no apparent causal connection that still seemed meaningfully related. You think about someone and they call. You're wrestling with a decision, and you hear the answer in a random conversation that wasn't even meant for you. You need a way out, and a door appears before you even go looking. Jung wasn't being mystical for the fun of it. He was trying to name a real pattern. Modern neuroscience has a partial explanation for this, and it's actually fascinating. It's called the reticular activating system, a neural network in the brainstem responsible for filtering what you perceive in your environment. Every single second, your brain receives around 11 million bits of sensory information. You consciously process about 50. The rest gets filtered out. The filter criteria: relevance to whatever you're focused on. When you're in the middle of a transition, thinking about changing careers, relationships, cities, your reticular activating system literally reprograms what you notice. That opportunity that came out of nowhere was probably there for months. Now you're calibrated to see it. That doesn't make the coincidences less real or less useful. If anything, it makes them more actionable. Because once you understand the mechanism, You stop passively waiting for signs and start cultivating the mental state that makes them visible. Slow down, pay more attention, write down what seems repetitive or out of the ordinary. Over time, you'll start to see that what you used to call chance actually has a structure. Now, here's an angle almost nobody talks about. The most revealing coincidences aren't the big dramatic ones. They're the small ones. A phrase that shows up twice in the same day in completely different contexts. A number you start noticing everywhere. A word that 3 different people use with you in the same week without knowing each other. Your brain is trying to show you something. The question is, are you paying enough attention to see what it is? Signal 3. Your relationships are going through a quiet reorganization. This is the signal that hurts the most, so I'm just going to be straight with you. Robert Dunbar, an anthropologist at Oxford, became well known for a simple and kind of devastating theory. Humans can cognitively and emotionally maintain up to 150 stable relationships at once. But the real inner circle, the people you have genuine depth with, that's 5. Just 5. When you shift phases of life, new city, new career, new values, new perspective, that inner circle reorganizes. Not because people are bad or because you failed at something, but because real bonds require proximity of experience. And when your experiences diverge too far from someone else's, the connection naturally loses its tension. No drama, no big fight. Messages get more spread out. Hangouts just stop happening. One day you realize it's been 6 months since you talked to someone who used to matter a lot. A Stanford study published in 2020 on friendship dynamics in American adult life found that most people lose between 40 and 60% of their close social network during significant transitions. 40 to 60%. That's nearly half your connections. That sounds scary until you realize what's on the other side of it. Every major transition in your life will naturally draw in people who share the new path. The problem is that arrival is always slower than the departure. So there's this window of time where you feel the loss before you've received what's coming. That window is the hardest part. The wrong question to ask in that moment is, why are people pulling away? The useful question is, who's actually moving closer right now, even if it's quiet? And one more thing. Don't try to force permanence on bonds that are naturally dissolving. Holding on to someone who's drifting away doesn't restore the connection. It just drags out the discomfort for both of you. Signal 4. You're developing a real need for silence. Here's something that genuinely surprised me when I first came across it. A study published in 2013 in the journal Brain Structure and Function found that 2 hours of silence per day promotes the growth of new cells in the hippocampus, the part of the brain tied to memory, learning, and emotional regulation. Not guided meditation with an app, not lo-fi beats in the background. Real silence. In the United States, average exposure to sound stimulation has tripled since 1950. Most American adults spend less than 30 minutes a day in actual silence. No screen, no headphones, no TV running in the background. And the body builds up a deficit from that which sleep alone doesn't fix. When you start feeling a tiredness from socializing that goes beyond being introverted, a weariness of noise, of conversations that go nowhere, of environments that are always packed and always rushing, your nervous system is asking for time to process. That processing is where real insights show up. Not in the podcasts you're listening to in traffic. Not in the notifications you're answering on a loop. In the pauses. In the moments where your mind can finally finish a thought without being interrupted. Now, there's an important distinction that needs to be made here. Healthy solitude and isolation are not the same thing. Healthy solitude is when you choose to be alone, and it actually recharges you. Isolation is when you're avoiding people, because you're in pain, and the world feels like too much. One feeds you, the other temporarily protects you, but doesn't actually solve anything. If you're feeling that pull to be quiet, to take a walk alone, to spend a weekend with no plans, honor that. It's not laziness. It's not antisocial. It's your nervous system asking for time to sort through what's changing inside you. Signal 5. Your dreams are getting weird, detailed, and hard to ignore. Matthew Walker, a neuroscientist at UC Berkeley and author of Why We Sleep, documents something that kind of shifts the way you think about dreams. During REM sleep, the brain processes emotional memories in a biochemically different state than during the day. Cortisol, the hormone associated with stress, is at its lowest levels. This creates a unique window where the brain can revisit difficult experiences without the emotional weight they carry when you're awake. During periods of major change, a shift in relationship, career, identity, direction, REM sleep increases in duration and intensity. The brain is literally processing and reorganizing your sense of self while you sleep, rebuilding connections, discarding what no longer fits, constructing new frameworks. More vivid dreams during these periods aren't a coincidence. They're a side effect of intense internal work. What can you actually do with that? Keep a notebook on your nightstand. Not to decode symbols with some dream dictionary, but to capture what surfaces right when you wake up, when that in-between state of sleep and wakefulness is still active. Psychologists call this the hypnopompic state, and it's one of the moments when creative insights and emotional clarity are most accessible. Here's something most people don't consider. You don't need to understand the dream to use what it left behind. Sometimes it's an emotion. Sometimes it's an image. Sometimes it's just the sense that you woke up with more clarity about something that was foggy the night before. That's worth something. Don't throw it away. Signal 6. Your tolerance for what isn't true is running out. In 1957, psychologist Leon Festinger published The Theory of Cognitive Dissonance, the mental tension that arises when you hold beliefs or behaviors that contradict your real values. And more importantly, he showed that the brain spends active, continuous energy to maintain those internal contradictions. It's work. It has a cost. At first, the cost feels manageable. You adapt. You rationalize. You find ways to live with the discomfort. But there's a limit to that. And when that limit is hit, the system stops sustaining the contradiction in a way that feels sudden, but was actually built up over a long time. You know the situation. You were in something for years. A relationship, a job, a city, a group of people. And then one seemingly ordinary day, you just can't anymore. Nothing different happened that day. But the cost of continuing finally outweighed the cost of changing. The brain ran the numbers and sent the result. This is why changes that seemed impossible from one side feel inevitable from the other. The person who said, "I will never quit that job," quits overnight. The relationship that seemed permanent ends in a single conversation. The move you put off for 3 years happens in 3 weeks. That's not impulsiveness. That's the accumulation hitting its tipping point. When you start noticing that you're saying no more easily, that you're protecting your time differently, that conversations or environments you used to tolerate, you now genuinely can't. That's not you getting difficult. That's you getting honest. And honesty has a social cost. Some people will think something's wrong with you. They'll ask what happened to you. They'll miss the version of you that went along with everything. But what you're building on the other side of that is worth more than the approval of people who preferred the old version. Signal 7. You feel like something is coming, but you can't name it. This is the hardest signal to put into words. It's not exactly anxiety. It's not exactly hope. It's this strange mix of both, an anticipation that doesn't have a clear object yet. You don't know what's coming, but you have this persistent feeling that something is. There's a field of research in psychology called prospective cognition, the brain's ability to simulate possible futures. Daniel Gilbert and Timothy Wilson, both researchers at Harvard, estimated in 2007 that we spend between 30 and 50% of our waking hours thinking about the future. Not the past. What's still going to happen? When you're in transition, the brain ramps up that prospective processing. It starts simulating scenarios that don't exist yet, looking for patterns in what's happening, anticipating consequences of choices you haven't even made yet. All of this happens in layers that don't reach consciousness as words. They arrive as sensations. As that gut feeling you can't quite explain, but that's rarely completely wrong. Here's what I've learned from watching this pattern. That gut feeling usually comes before the external movement. Before the change happens on the outside, it happens on the inside. And ignoring that signal, writing it off as passing anxiety, burying it in distraction, means missing the window where you could have been getting ready. Getting ready doesn't mean knowing exactly what's coming. It means being available for whatever shows up. It means having cleared out enough of what no longer serves you to actually have space for something new to come in. Write down what comes up, not necessarily as a plan, as an observation. Today I felt this. That thing caught my attention. That conversation stayed with me. Over time, the patterns get clearer. And when the moment comes, you'll recognize it. Because you've been paying attention all along. 7 signals. None of them require you to believe in anything you can't verify. All of them are grounded in how the brain and body actually work. The difference between people who move through transformations with clarity and those who stay stuck in the same cycle for years is rarely circumstance. It's attention. Paying attention to what your body feels, to what your environment is showing you, to what your relationships are revealing about where you are and where you're headed, to what your dreams are processing while you sleep, to where your tolerance is reaching its limit, and to that persistent feeling that something is in motion. And look, I want to be real with you for a second. None of this is easy. Awareness sounds simple in theory, right? Just pay attention. But in practice, paying attention means sitting with discomfort instead of scrolling past it. It means noticing the tension in your chest on a Sunday night and actually asking why it's there instead of just waiting for Monday to distract you. It means letting yourself feel the gap between who you are and who you know you could be, without immediately trying to close that gap with noise. That takes courage. More than most people give it credit for. Here's something I've noticed talking to a lot of people who've gone through real, lasting change. They almost never point to a single dramatic moment as the turning point. It's never, I woke up one day and everything was different. It's always something quieter than that. It's, I started noticing things I used to ignore. I stopped pretending a situation was fine when it clearly wasn't. I gave myself permission to take seriously what I was feeling. That's it. That's the whole move. You don't need a crisis to change. You don't need to hit rock bottom, lose everything, or have some kind of breakdown before you're allowed to say, okay, something needs to shift here. The signals are there long before any of that. That's literally the whole point of this video. So, if you watched this far, and something landed, even just one thing, even just a single sentence that made you go, yeah, actually, don't just let that sit there. Write it down. Sit with it for 5 minutes. Ask yourself what it's connected to. That's where it starts. You don't need to have everything figured out to start moving. But you do need to stop pretending you're not feeling what you're feeling. Now, one quick thing before you go. This channel doesn't have a sponsor. No brand is paying to show up here. What keeps this content alive is exactly the people watching. People who found value in what was said and decided to contribute in some way. If this video gave you something, a new perspective, a clarity you were missing, some relief in knowing that what you're feeling actually has a name, consider supporting the channel through the link in the description. Any amount, one time or recurring, goes directly toward letting me keep researching, writing, and producing content like this. No fluff, no mid-roll ads, no hidden agenda. Just the work. Subscribe, hit the bell, and tell me in the comments which of these 7 signals is most present in your life right now. I read every single one, and whatever shows up most down there becomes the next video.